dive right into it. Hopefully some people join in and get to have a nice conversation about restoring your essential balance, how tonic and plant medicine can help with that, and why it is really so important. So to start everything off, let me introduce myself. I'm Brittany Carbone, founder and CEO of Tonic CBD and co-founder of Tricola Farms and Bardo Labs. Together we form a conscious, sustainable, vertically integrated group really focused on maximizing the therapeutic potential of the plant while also really giving back to the community and giving back to the cannabis industry and the people who the cannabis industry was built on. So we really like to take a full integrative approach with how we approach our business model, and that's really how we approach our business of healing as well. It's really about taking the whole picture, and that's really what we're going to talk about today. So Tonic was really created around the idea of restoring the essential balance between body and mind and soul. That balance between those three primary energies within us, mind, body, and spirit, is really at the core of wellness, mentally and physically. In the simplest sense, you can think of that essential balance as homeostasis, right? Which is the optimal physiological state that our bodies are always striving to maintain. There are so many things that we encounter on a daily basis that inhibit us from achieving or maintaining homeostasis because they stress us the fuck out. Work, family, politics, social media, living through a pandemic, just to name a few, right? But what are the implications of that, right? What happens when we aren't existing in our ideal states of balance? And if all this bullshit that's always knocking us out of balance and trying to knock us off course is, just pretty unavoidable, pretty inevitable, what's a girl to do, right? How do we deal with it? How do we adapt? And how do we just defend against the effects of chronic stress? Because that's really what is constantly throwing us out of balance, stress, right? These are the main points that we'll be covering tonight, from the energetic and a woo-woo perspective to the biological science. You'll be learning all about the importance of balance and why, actually achieving it requires a hearty dose of self-love and tonic. A little shameless plug there, but all right. So I'm actually going to take my phone down from here. Try to keep it up here to look at my notes, but it's just making me look at a weird thing, at a weird angle. So here we go. Okay. Thanks for hanging in there for that. So before I created Tonic, give you a little backstory here, right? Before I created Tonic, I was a personal trainer and health coach, and I also suffered from pretty bad depression for pretty much as long as I can remember, right? Like it was not until I kind of got into my late teens, early 20s that, the anxiety started to join in along with that depression, which was really fun, right? But those are the two most important headlines I want you guys to know when it comes to explaining kind of how Tonic was born. I'll give you a quick background before we dive into the nitty gritty of it all, right? But I started smoking weed when I was 15 and I immediately fell in love with it. It was the only thing that could lift the weight that I felt like I was always carrying around. And it clicked for me for sure. And never really questioned it. You know what I mean? I never really cared to ask how or why it was doing what it was doing, because the fact that it was doing it was enough for me. Being in New York and not having the luxury of going to a dispensary, getting like a 1-to-1 CBD THC ratio, or popping in, a nice 5 milligram edible before I walk out the door, I was really kind of just stuck with whatever my dealer was to deal me, right? So that made it a little bit difficult for me to kind of self-medicate the way that I wanted to, or the way that I needed to, right? It was just kind of getting to the point where, I would try to, take a few hits of a joint before a session with my client to take the edge off my anxiety, to level me out. And, one hit too many of, because I didn't realize it was a stronger strain or whatever it may be. And all of a sudden I was really bad at counting reps, right? You know what I mean? It got just like a little bit, it wasn't functional for me during the workday, right? So I needed something that would help me like cannabis always had, but without the intoxicating effects that was leaving me kind of, not being able to do my job great, right? So that was really kind of what led me to CBD. I tried CBD for the first time in late 2016. Like I said, hoping to find a natural solution to my anxiety and depression. So after I'd been taking it for a couple of days, one of my clients who I was really close with, she said to me during one of our sessions, like, "What's wrong with you? Why are you in such a good mood?" And I was like, "I'm in a really good mood. Like, what is going on?" Like, I feel really good. And I started to think about it. And the only thing that was different was I was taking CBD, right? And then that's when I really started to take notice. The results were undeniable, and I needed to understand how it was doing that, because honestly, I was skeptical at first. So I was like, all right, I need to get to the bottom of this. And that's when the deep dive into the endocannabinoid system started. It all started to click. The endocannabinoid system is all about balance. Its role is to keep all major physiological systems in that Goldilocks zone where everything is just right, right? So it is the bridge between the body and the mind. The endocannabinoid system, it is just so valuable. And it was like blowing my mind that as a personal trainer, like, I went through so much education, and they like hammer so much into you about, how to deal with all these different, things that your clients might be dealing with and how to approach them. But like nobody's ever talked about the endocannabinoid system, and the fact that endocannabinoid system deficiency could be the reason why, the client's not sleeping, and the reason that they're not sleeping, is causing them to, not be able to recover from their workouts properly and not be able to, really get to the goals that they want to reach, right? So it all kind of just, all that to say, it has a downstream effect. And the fact that there's such a major component that nobody is talking about when it comes to mainstream health and wellness, it just wasn't, that did not sit right with me. You know what I mean? So like I said, it kind of just like started to click though. It really started to like make sense as to why cannabis was able to help me and like how this all actually worked. The difference between CBD and THC and how it interacts with your endocannabinoid system differently, but all working towards that same goal of homeostasis, right? So then I started to connect the dots between traditional adaptogens like ashwagandha, which I had already been taking, using regularly myself to manage mood, energy, focus, and recommending to my clients to help them with things, everything from sleep to performance. So I realized that, both CBD and, more traditional adaptogens like ashwagandha were working towards that same ultimate goal of homeostasis, but taking different pathways to get there. And we'll kind of go into a little bit more of what that means as far as how they both work a little bit later. But, I began to combine CBD and ashwagandha in the hopes that it would create an ultra balancing, mood boosting, anxiety reducing powerhouse. And it's exactly what happened. I was really just amazed at the results. It was really just kind of got me exactly to where I wanted to be. I felt great mentally, physically. My workouts were better, my recovery was better, my sleep was better. All of that just kind of secondary benefits to my mood and my energy levels, my depression, and my ability to manage that anxiety that I was feeling. So it was really just something that I'm still just so incredibly grateful for. And I wasn't out to build a brand when I made this combination. I was really just looking for a way to feel better myself. And then once I felt those results, though, I knew I had to share this with my clients. I wanted to see if it could help them too, and help them to kind of just get like that, hit that reset button. That's like what I felt that it was. Like it was kind of like hitting refresh on your browser, right? Like, everything kind of just like, it works again. Like everything kind of just realigns and you feel normal. And that's like the best way you can put it, is like you just feel like the best version of yourself. And, it's funny because a lot of people expect to feel high or whatever, but it's really, a lot of people say that they notice the effects of CBD and adaptogens when they stop taking it, because like, it's so subtle that you don't even really pick up on it too much. Like I said, it took my client kind of saying something to me like, why you're in such a good mood, for me to even realize. And, that really comes down to checking in with your body, which is something else that we're going to touch on a little bit more, right? But working with such a vast population allowed me to see the common threads and kind of see the patterns from on a big picture perspective. And the factors that persisted and stood in the way of people reaching their goals, no matter their age, gender, fitness level, it was stress. Stress was stopping them from sleeping well. It was causing chronic inflammation, and it was a cycle they couldn't seem to break. So the idea was that if I could help these stressed out clients just get to that foundation of balance, of homeostasis, then they would be much better equipped to be able to actually build health and wellness upon that, right? Like we're kind of just always climbing out of these holes that we create for ourselves, that stress creates for us, and we're trying to, work out, and we're trying to do all these things, like not realizing that we are actually like in underground. We are way down there. We just need to get to ground level. And once we're at ground level, then we can actually start to build, right? So the kind of idea behind Tonic is to get you to that ground level. And that was really just seeing that the results weren't isolated to just myself, but that my clients were seeing it too, and that we were starting to make progress that we weren't able to make before, that they were feeling better than they had felt before, and they didn't have to turn to any kind of sleeping pills or things like that we usually turn to. It was really just truly amazing. And that's when I knew I had to share it with the world. And that's, how the mission to bring the healing power of balance to as many people as possible began, and how the tagline Fix Your Vibe was created. Oh, hi, Amy. What's up? Girl, Amy Chin. Glad you're tuning in. We're going to have some time actually for people to hop in and ask questions and interact a little bit later, so please hang in there. I don't think I can talk for 45 minutes straight, so I'm going to need somebody to come in and help me out. So, all right, like I was saying, like that's where the Fix Your Vibe tagline came into play. If you follow Tonic on Instagram, if you are familiar with us at all, hashtag Fix Your Vibe is our thing. That is how the best way to explain what Tonic can do for you. So let me break that down a little bit more. This is kind of getting into the woo-woo energetics of, the whole importance of balance, right? So when our energies are aligned, we vibrate at a higher frequency. When we vibrate at a higher frequency, we feel better, we make others feel better, we attract better into our lives. Our perspective on things are different. It's like seeing the world through rose-colored glasses, right? When you're vibing high, you feel good and you see good, you notice the good. But when your vibe is low, you're attracting that into your life. You're attracting that lower vibrational energy. And it's just really something that, your vibration is dictating the way that you're seeing the world, right? So you can imagine how much that is going to affect, in a lot of downstream ways. So, there are things that throw off our vibes every day. Even if you're a Zen master and an expert at, not letting outside forces influence your inner peace, you are still being exposed to a number of unconscious stressors that can seriously influence your vibe. Let's just say you're not a Zen master and you're just trying your best not to cry or fight anybody throughout the day, right? Your vibe can be thrown off super easily if you're not careful. It is a constant practice of checking in, tuning in, actually listening to your body and, listening to your intuition, receiving the message and taking the time to actually address what your body is telling you that you need. So that's where self-love comes in, right? Taking the time to tune into yourself is the first step, but approaching that moment with love and not judgment is really the key. Oh, thank you, Tokeativity. You're so sweet. But like I said, addressing it with love, approaching it with love, that is the key, right? Because that's really, where you can kind of fall down that slippery slope, right? You can really very easily fall into that thought pattern of, I feel like shit. Why do I feel like this? Because I'm too busy to fill in the blank, right? Eat right, exercise, meditate, journal, read, whatever it is, right? But wait, how come, that person that I follow on Instagram, that wellness influencer, she has kids and she's still eating right and she's still taking the time to like look beautiful and do all this, right? First of all, it's bullshit. And you know what I mean? Your mind tricks you into thinking that, that is real life, but we all know social media is not real life, right? So that's number one, right? But I digress. So needless to say, falling into that thought pattern and telling yourself that you feel like this because you're not doing enough, because you're not enough, is not the message that you want to be sending yourself. That is going to cause even more of a stress response, which will lead to further imbalance, and that cycle persists, right? So, the important thing to remember is you are enough. You are exactly where you need to be. Talk to yourself like you would talk to your best friend. Approach yourself with the same benefit of the doubt, the same understanding, and the same love. And I know it's easier said than done. Believe me, I'm talking from experience. I'm, somebody that has to have an affirmation and meditation practice in the morning to shut up those voices in my head that are telling me that I'm not enough. And, the first thing that I do in the morning, take that OG, because that is where Tonic can really come into play, because not only does it level you out, OG is one of our blends, by the way. It's the original blend of CBD and ashwagandha that I was talking about before. That started it all. That's why it's called the OG. But like I was saying, not only does it level you out, but it brings you into a state where you can separate yourself from your thoughts and rise above what's bringing you down, right? It creates the spaciousness necessary to gain perspective and approach stressful times with calm and clarity. Because that's really the key, right? You could know all these things. Like you could be like, all right, I have all these self-care tips. I've really been trying my best. Like I know that when I feel like this, I should, use the tools like breathing exercises and, I should meditate and all these things. But when push comes to shove, when you're in that moment of anxiety, that doesn't matter. It all goes out the window, right? When you're in like that pure fight or flight response, you don't have that space to get some perspective, take a step back and assess and, address the situation, with with a clear perspective, right? You're approaching it with that stress response. You're reacting rather than responding, right? So what tonic can do is help you in that moment just get to that place of balance where you do have that space to respond rather than react. And that can go a really, really long way. So, like I said, please approach this whole thing with love, right? Like fix your vibe does not mean you have a bad vibe, right? Having to fix your vibe doesn't mean you have a bad vibe, not at all. It just means that you're a human living in America in the year 2021, and that in and of itself, can be rough, right? And that in and of itself calls for some daily vibe maintenance for sure. So, it's really just making sure that negativity and insanity that we live amongst every day doesn't have a chance to seep in too deeply, right? It's hard out there. So you need to remember to give yourself a break, be kind to yourself and take care of yourself. And the important thing to remember is that when you're imbalanced, when you're not taking the time to take care of your whole self, it's like you're sending out static signals, right? The transmission is all messed up and you're not sending or receiving signals clearly because everything's all over the place, right? Like think about just like your energy is flowing in a straight line, you're a clear channel. But if they're kind of all over the place, that message is going to get jumbled up all over, sending out those static signals. When you're aligned, when your mind, body, and spirit are in harmony, the signal is clear. You become a clear channel. You're tuned into the frequency of the universe. And think about the magic that can happen when you can communicate clearly with the universe and are tuned into the energy of everything. Shit starts to get real, for sure, right? But seriously, these signals are actually real and like a biological, neurological sense, not just saying like the signals, from energy and, the energy of the universe. That is, hey, I believe it. I think that the crowd here, I think I'm talking to the right people. I don't think that I'm going to get anybody who's like, this is some woo-woo bullshit, but just in case, I'm going to hit you with the science now. But before I do that, I'm just going to take a quick drink. If anybody has any questions at any time or wants to pop in, just feel free to put it in the chat here. I can let people in, or if you want to just hit the button to share your video and audio or just audio, whatever it is, feel free. I'll let you right in. I have an open door policy here. But so let's get into neurotransmitters a little bit, right? Because this is some important stuff. The neurotransmitters are these chemical messengers in your body. Thank you so much, Tony. Appreciate that. So neurotransmitters are these chemical messengers in your body that are dictating everything from your heart rate to your sleep, to your mood, to your motivation, to your digestion, to your immune function. So obviously very important. So thank you, Blaze. That's awesome. So that is really the first thing to understand. The neurotransmitters and their role in your body. They are sending all these messages and dictating all these major physiological functions, right? So CBD in and of itself can really, that's the real power of CBD, is its ability to influence non-cannabinoid targets, right? So that's something like your serotonin receptor sites and serotonin levels, similar to like SSRIs, like that you would usually get prescribed for anxiety and depression. CBD actually works in a similar way by controlling the amount of serotonin that is being released and active in those the synaptic space. So basically kind of like in the space between where the message gets sent and where the message gets received, right? So, okay, bringing it all together. So there has to be a balance of neurotransmitters. Basically, the neurotransmitters are split up into two groups, excitatory and inhibitory. So it's kind of just how they sound. Your excitatory neurotransmitters are what brings you up, right? You can think of it as like the accelerator, your body's gas pedal. The inhibitory neurotransmitters, what slows you down, your body's brake pedal. So the primary excitatory neurotransmitter is going to be norepinephrine, right? Kind of similar to adrenaline. They're kind of used interchangeably. And what's the precursor to that? What signals the flood of that into your brain? Cortisol. What causes cortisol to spike up? Stress, right? And we're stressed all the time, right? So this is like the key thing, but I think that a lot of people are stuck in a lot of the time is that fight or flight response. So again, we're getting into a little science here, but your nervous system, your autonomic nervous system is split between the parasympathetic and the sympathetic nervous system, right? So you are going to get like Parasympathetic nervous system is your fight or flight response. Sympathetic nervous system is your rest and digest system. Absolutely, Amy. We're definitely going to get to that pretty much right after I get down to this breakdown of the rest and digest and the neurotransmitters. And we're going to dive right into the CBD and adaptogens and how they both work in a little different ways to achieve those same goals. So, like I said, you're going to have those two nervous systems that are kind of, you're working in that the gas pedal and brake pedal kind of way, right? The excitatory neurons are going to trigger that fight or flight response. And then the inhibitory neurons is what's going to flip that switch, turn off fight or flight, and switch on rest and digest, right? So when you think about it from like an evolutionary standpoint, wild animal is running towards you, right? Jungle cat running right at you. You need that fight or flight response so your adrenaline can pump. You can get the hell out of there, right? But then once you're safe, once you're hiding in a cave and you see that animal run by, the normal response is, okay, now the inhibitory neurotransmitters come rushing in and shut down that response. But we're living in a different world now. We're not running away from jungle cats. We are constantly bombarded with stress, whether it is straight up in your face, you're watching the news, you're just fucking paying attention to what's going on in the world. You're stressed, like unconscious stress. There's just so much going on around you. Let's say you're living in LA or New York City. Like there's just so much going on around you all the time. And there is just, we're getting so much stimulus thrown at us all the time. All the screens, the social media, the news, the TV, the computers, work is just, we're expected to check our emails at all times of day and night and on the weekends and everything like that. It's always this little bit of stress, right? And with that stress, it's going to release that cortisol. It's going to trigger that fight or flight response. So what happens when that fight or flight response is triggered? You're not only getting like that rush of excitatory neurons going flooding into your brain, but it's also going to kind of get you stuck there if you can't get out of it. And what that does is it causes a lot of inflammation, because at that point, like your body is in survival mode, right? It's like everything else can wait. Let's just stop this emergency. Because again, your body is responding like you're being chased by a jungle cat, right? So you are kind of just in this cycle now. You're not going to sleep because again, now you have so many of these excitatory neurons overpowering the inhibitory neurons, right? You can never kind of get into that rest and digest mode, but you're also your immune system is going to definitely suffer. And listen carefully, rest and digest, right? So not only is your sleep going to suffer, your digestion is going to suffer because again, when you're in that emergent kind of response mode, your body's not thinking like, oh, now it's time to digest my food. It is actually going to cause a surge in blood sugar, and it's going to actually increase blood glucose levels, and it's not your digestion, kind of normal digestive processes kind of get put on the back burner with other things, that are helpful for feeling good and, being relaxed, but not helpful for survival, right? So how do we switch off that fight or flight response if all of these things that we're coming into, encountering on a day-to-day basis are just kind of inevitably stressing us out, right? That's the real question, right? How do we balance this? How do we make sure that we have healthy amounts of GABA in our systems? GABA is the primary inhibitory neurotransmitter. How do we make sure that, the proper bodily process is happening, which is turning that glutamate? So let me backtrack a little bit. Glutamate, another, pretty much up there with norepinephrine and adrenaline as far as the primary excitatory neurotransmitter. And in a normal, bodily functions, what happens is glutamate is released and then converted into GABA in the stomach. So GABA, again, helps you relax. GABA is what actually tells slows down this, like the nervous system communication, right? It's kind of what tells like your nervous system to, all right, time to go to bed. Everybody shut up, stop firing, stop, communicating with each other and firing all over the place, right? It slows down racing thoughts, slows down raciness within your body, and just really serves to overall relax you. So serotonin is going to be another primary inhibitory neurotransmitter. Serotonin is so important. It is, one of the neurotransmitter that's pretty much responsible for, mood. That's like the big one. It's like the called like the feel-good neurotransmitter serotonin a lot of the time, because it's like mood, sex drive, appetite, sleep, all of the good stuff. Basically, serotonin, you need healthy levels of serotonin for that. And like I was saying before, SSRIs or, Lexapro, Zoloft, those kinds of medications, what they do is control the amount of serotonin that's active in your system. CBD can do that same thing. So then here's where we kind of get to the crux of it, right? So CBD has the ability to influence serotonin activity, right? It also has the ability to influence GABA activity, because the endocannabinoid system is pretty much, the conductor, making sure the orchestra of your body is in perfect harmony. That's going to like influence all these different systems. But as we know, the endocannabinoid system is very nuanced. It's very individualized. That's why some people have a great time smoking a joint, feel great. Other people smoking that same joint get paranoid as fuck, or, somebody's asleep on the couch, can't even get up, while the other one is, feeling good and, having a great time. So, it's also why some people need very different doses of CBD, or sometimes people, feel like CBD makes them fall asleep right away. Other people feel like CBD kind of gives them a little boost of energy and focus, right? So that's really kind of the nuance and the beauty of CBD, is that it can be something for everybody. And it really comes down to kind of what your body needs, right? It also comes down to your concentration of endocannabinoid receptors, your, endocannabinoid receptor sensitivity. All of these different things will contribute to that. So it's basically, again, going back to that whole body approach, that integrative approach, that's where the combination of CBD and adaptogens and other calming herbs and botanicals and superfoods that we use in Tonic really create a more effective, integrative, and holistic wellness approach. So with ashwagandha, like Amy asked before, right, how does adaptogens like ashwagandha work differently than CBD when it comes to reaching homeostasis, or when it comes to managing anxiety? And so really comes down to this. Ashwagandha really addresses your kind of more of your like hormonal, your pituitary axis, and your like adrenaline and cortisol, right? Like those, that's really where ashwagandha is going to have the biggest impact. It's going to really lower your cortisol levels. That's the primary benefit that you want to keep in mind with ashwagandha, that it's been clinically proven to be able to lower cortisol levels. So immediately right there, that's controlling your stress response, right? That's being able to control that response that you automatically might have to even just opening up an email from somebody that you might not want to be answering an email from, right? Like it causes this little cortisol response. But if you can have something in your system that is working to regulate that, right? Like it can kind of come up and come down. That's the thing. Like cortisol is completely normal. It's necessary. It's what gets us out of bed in the morning. It's part of our circadian rhythm, but it needs to come back down. It needs to come up, come down in a predictable and natural way, right? When it becomes problematic is when it stays up, right? So ashwagandha is going to help to control cortisol levels. And that is really kind of how it gets its power to be able to really influence like mental clarity, mood. Also the way that, it really influences your, that stress response, right? Because it's not now keeping you in fight or flight, right? So what's that? What's not meant to be a layer of protection? The cortisol. But anyway, we'll get to that for sure. Oh yeah, definitely not meant to be a layer of protection. It's like a evolutionary response. You know what I mean? It's supposed to just be there for a little bit and then, do its job, wave and walk away. But when it hangs out for too long, it's like a clinger. You gotta get rid of that cortisol for sure. So definitely ashwagandha is going to address that, and it's going to address that fight or flight response. It's going to help you manage your fight or flight response. And what that does, when you're in your fight or flight response, like what I said before, you're now in survival mode. You're not, your prefrontal cortex, the kind of main decision making and like higher cognitive functioning of your brain is pretty much like turned off. You know what I mean? That's not where you're pulling your judgment from. That's not where you're, really being able to live and get perspective. You are in that kind of very primal brain, reptilian brain kind of mode in that sense. So then basically what CBD is doing is more so focusing that 5-HT system, which is where the serotonin receptors live. So what CBD does to actually manage anxiety and depression and those feelings is not by interacting directly with CB2 receptors, right? It's not like CBD doesn't act like a lock and key into our endocannabinoid receptors like THC does, right? What it does is actually inhibit something called FAHH. So what that is a enzyme that will actually break down anandamide. Anandamide is endocannabinoid, so a cannabinoid our body produces on its own that is responsible for feelings of well-being, of bliss, runner's highs. So usually that's always been attributed to endorphins, but they have been able to show that that's actually a release of anandamide in our systems. That's actually an endocannabinoid release, something like a runner's high. So ananda being like Sanskrit for bliss. So it's called the bliss molecule, anandamide. So what CBD does is actually it's kind of blocks out this enzyme that breaks down anandamide. So it allows more anandamide to stay active and present in your system. The anandamide is what actually binds directly to the cannabinoid receptors. And then that's kind of how it activates your endocannabinoid system, right? It's kind of like a roundabout way. So CBD is affecting like your serotonin receptors and it's affecting your endocannabinoid receptors directly. Whereas ashwagandha is more so affecting cortisol and hormone levels. So they kind of come together to kind of go down these different pathways, all leading towards homeostasis. Amazing. Bliss molecules. Perfect. And that's really like the whole thing with the endocannabinoid system is like it is the most beautiful expression of our connection to nature, our connection to each other, and like that bliss. Like, you know what I mean? And because that's the thing, like happiness can be fleeting, right? Like if it's based on something outside of us, right? Happiness can be fleeting, but joy, bliss, like those are just like these deep-seated feelings that we can access whenever we want, right? It's inside of us and it's not dependent on anything outside, right? It's all dependent on our inner state. And that again is balance. Like really being able to align your energies and be in that state of balance. That's what everything else is built off of. That is when you're in your sweet spot, you know what I mean? And like, it really comes down to having the tools to be able to keep that balance. So, like I was saying, this balance between excitatory and inhibitory neurotransmitters is the key to managing feelings of anxiety, depression, sleeplessness, insomnia, all these different things. But it's also, think about your gut health. This is like a whole other kind of rabbit hole that we could go down for sure, but I'm going to hit you with something real important. Most of your immune system is found in your gut. Most of your endocannabinoid system is found in your gut. And most of your serotonin is produced in your gut. And a lot of other neurotransmitters are produced in your gut as well. So that, again, we're thinking about the whole picture, right? We have to think about wellness as just all these different pieces of a bigger puzzle. And it really is just so important to address each piece, right? Because, a lot of times you think about stress, like, or you think about imbalance, like, oh, I'm eating like crap, or I'm not sleeping, or, I'm not exercising, I'm not taking care of myself. But flip that to the other side of the coin. It can also manifest as you are working out way too much. You're not leaving, yourself with recovery days to actually recover and to, for your muscles to repair and for you to get stronger, right? You're restricting your diet too much so that you're not getting the calories that you need to actually nourish your body. Yes, Bianca, perfect. That's like my favorite thing to tell people is like that saying, a gut feeling. That's where that comes from. It's your gut is your second brain, and your gut literally does have its own nervous system, and the communication between your gut and your brain is so influential. It is everything. Your gut brain axis, there's a constant kind of back and forth communication between your gut and your brain, and it controls the neurotransmitters that are released. It controls the neurotransmitters that are produced, and it also controls inflammation so much. It's another kind of downstream effect of cortisol. When you're in that fight or flight response and you're not properly balanced, basically it inhibits one of like your kind of messes up the balance of one of like primary bacteria in your gut. So like your gut flora balancing your gut health and your gut bacteria is so important, because they've been able to kind of pinpoint certain bacteria that is affected by stress, without a doubt, and that actually causes a weakening in like the lining of the gut that allows digestive fluids to leak out and cause chronic inflammation throughout your body. Like, it's crazy how much it is connected, and like, it's not, again, not talking about it enough is really just the main problem. But then, I know there's a lot of ladies here. I know this is, Tokeativity. We're all about bringing women together. Ladies, we are the worst at it. We are the worst at putting ourselves first. There's always somebody that, needs our help before we need our own help, but there's always something that needs our attention before we can give our attention to ourselves. And I'm definitely just like, now as a, self-love is what we're talking about. Like, this is how you love yourself. This is how you love others, is by loving yourself. You can't pour from an empty cup, right? It sounds like such like a trite saying, but it's so true. And that's really kind of where the balance comes into play. Balance requires self-love. Balance is a product of self-love. Recognizing what you need, taking the time to listen to yourself, to listen to your body, to check in, to tune in. And then, like I was saying before, approaching whatever message that you get, whatever information you gain from that check-in, actually approaching it with love, and not approaching it with judgment. That is the most important thing, because it's, again, the way that you talk to yourself, the way that you're thinking, just these thought patterns that we can get stuck in that cause more of a cortisol release, that cause more of a stress response, that cause more neurological activity. It's just, these cycles can be broken by, like, with the frequency of love, and loving yourself, most importantly, and it's really about creating that space to love yourself, creating that space between you and your thoughts, because, I think we can all agree that thoughts are, powerful stuff, to say the least, and I mean, you can convince yourself that a word doesn't exist just by thinking about it too much, right? So you can convince yourself of anything, but you're not your thoughts. And again, that's what tools like Tonic, what this plant, like different plant medicines, can help you do, is detach yourself from the kind of the restrictions that your thoughts put in place. And that voice in your head that's telling you that you're not enough, or that's telling you all these negative things. You need to be able to step away from that and remember that you are enough, and that you are, exactly where you need to be, and that you have the tools that you need to be able to get through this, right? It's really hard in that moment. And that's why having these tools are important. But then it's also, what do you do after the tools? I always tell people, CBD is not the magic bullet, right? Like, yeah, maybe if you just have some like acute inflammation in your joint, and like you take some CBD, you can really actually kind of get better from that, right? But like, when it comes to managing stress and mental health, it's such an intricate web that we weave around that, right? And CBD, if your whole life is just chaos and you take a couple drops of CBD, it's not going to take the chaos away. So you need to be able to take that moment of spaciousness that you can achieve with the CBD when your body is back into balance, back into alignment, you're thinking clearly, feeling good. Then that's when you put in practices like, meditation, breath work, like, journaling, whatever it is. That's when you can actually use those tools and get past and grow, and actually, like I said before, build additional wellness, not just kind of climb out of that hole just to get to ground level, right? The CBD and adaptogens will bring you to ground level, and then from there, it's up to you to build upon that. And I hope that all this information, I know it's a lot I threw at you guys during this past 40 minutes or so, but I really hope that you enjoyed it, and that you can take a little bit from this and be able to apply it. At least, even if you're already using CBD, sometimes even just understanding how it's working a little bit more can make it more effective. You know what I mean? Like, having, again, it's that mind-body connection right there. Actually, like being in tune to what's happening in your body when you're ingesting something, and really being connected like that extra sense of awareness can really make a difference in the overall efficacy that you feel from the product. So, if anybody has any questions, please, I'm all ears. We got about 5 minutes left. Let's chug some water again. Thank you, Amy, for sticking around through it, and for always your support. The OG is my go-to in the morning as well. It's for sure, it just sets me straight. And then if I'm having a real rough day, I'm gonna have to take some chill in the afternoon, but OG in the morning, OG in the afternoon, chill at night. It's a lifestyle, baby. But if you guys want to learn more about Tonic, please visit tonicvibes.com. Follow us on Instagram, tonic_CBD. You can also learn more about our extraction lab and our farm. That's Bardo Labs and Tricola Farms. You'll find all the information, if you just follow along with Tonic. We're always, showing the love to the whole fam. So, thank you guys so much. Happy Valentine's Day. Happy Galentine's Day. Happy whatever. Just love yourself. Love everybody. 'Cause I love you. Peace.